Hello, my friends. I am very happy you are here today. Take a moment to relax and travel back to a time when one of the largest empires in the world controlled millions of people across vast lands. Imagine a man who possessed no army, commanded no powerful weapons, and ruled no kingdom. On the surface, he seemed unlikely to challenge one of history's most powerful empires. Yet this ordinary-looking man believed that courage did not require violence, and that determination could be stronger than force. His ideas inspired millions. His actions changed the course of history. His message reached far beyond the borders of his homeland. More than 70 years after his death, people around the world still remember his name. His name was Mahatma Gandhi, and this is the story of the man who challenged an empire without weapons, a quiet boy searching for truth. Mahatma Gandhi was born on October 3rd, 1869, in the small coastal town of Porbandar, located in western India. His birth name was Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and he entered a world that was very different from the one most people know today. India at that time was a land of ancient traditions, diverse cultures, and growing political change. Although Gandhi would eventually become one of the most influential figures in modern history, his early years gave little indication of the extraordinary role he would one day play. He grew up in a family that placed great importance on honesty, responsibility, and spiritual values. His father served as a government official and was known for his dedication to public service. His mother was deeply religious and devoted much of her life to prayer, self-discipline, and helping others. Through their example, young Mohandas learned lessons that would remain with him throughout his life. Unlike many famous leaders who displayed remarkable confidence from an early age, Gandhi was often shy and reserved. He was not the loudest child in the room, nor was he someone who naturally attracted attention. He preferred observing rather than speaking. He spent time reflecting on situations and thinking carefully before expressing his opinions. This quiet nature allowed him to develop an important habit. He learned how to listen. He paid attention to people, their actions, and the consequences of their decisions. While others rushed to make judgments, Gandhi often preferred to think deeply about what he had seen and heard. This tendency toward reflection would later become one of his greatest strengths. His childhood was shaped by stories that emphasized moral courage and personal integrity. Religious teachings, historical accounts, and family traditions introduced him to examples of individuals who remained faithful to their principles even during difficult circumstances. These stories fascinated him because they raised important questions about human behavior. Why do some people remain honest when dishonesty appears easier? Why do certain individuals choose compassion instead of cruelty? How can a person remain committed to truth when facing pressure from others? Questions like these captured his imagination. As he grew older, Gandhi became increasingly interested in understanding the relationship between personal values and everyday actions. He believed that character was not simply something people talked about, it was something they demonstrated through their choices. Education played a significant role in expanding his perspective. Although he was not always considered an exceptional student, he approached learning seriously and understood its importance. School exposed him to new ideas and introduced him to subjects that encouraged deeper thinking about society and human relationships. He read about history. He learned about different cultures. He studied the experiences of people whose lives were very different from his own. Each lesson broadened his understanding of the world. Gandhi faced many of the same struggles experienced by other young people. He made mistakes, encountered uncertainty, and sometimes lacked confidence in himself. These experiences helped him understand that personal growth often involves overcoming weaknesses rather than pretending they do not exist. One reason Gandhi's story continues inspiring people today is that he did not begin life as a perfect individual. He developed gradually. He learned through experience. He constantly examined his own actions and looked for ways to improve himself. This willingness to grow became one of the defining characteristics of his life. As a teenager and young adult, he became increasingly curious about larger questions concerning justice, morality, and truth. He wanted to understand how societies functioned and why some people suffered unfair treatment while others enjoyed privilege and opportunity. The search for answers became a lifelong pursuit. For Gandhi, truth was not simply a concept discussed in books. It was something that needed to be explored, tested, and applied in daily life. He believed that individuals should strive to live according to their deepest principles, even when doing so required sacrifice. These ideas were still developing. The young boy from Porbandar could not yet imagine how far his journey would take him. He could not know that one day millions of people would follow his leadership. He could not know that his name would become associated with peaceful resistance and social change around the world. What he did know was that he wanted to understand himself and the world more clearly. That desire guided him forward. The quiet child who preferred reflection over attention was beginning a journey that would eventually transform not only his own life, but also the lives of countless others. The lessons learned from his family, his education, and his personal search for truth were laying the foundation for a future that would influence history itself. Long before he challenged an empire, Gandhi was simply a thoughtful young man trying to understand how a person could live with honesty, courage, and purpose. Those questions would shape everything that followed, the experience that changed everything. As Mahatma Gandhi entered adulthood, he found himself standing at an important crossroads. The quiet and thoughtful boy from Porbandar had grown into a young man eager to build a meaningful future. Like many ambitious individuals of his generation, he believed education could open doors to opportunities that would otherwise remain out of reach. Determined to pursue a professional career, Gandhi traveled to England to study law. The journey itself was significant. Leaving India meant entering an unfamiliar world with different customs, traditions, and expectations. For a young man who had spent most of his life within the cultural environment of Western India, the experience was both exciting and challenging. Life in England exposed Gandhi to ideas and perspectives he had never encountered before. He met people from different backgrounds, observed new ways of thinking, and learned how societies could function in very different ways. These experiences broadened his understanding of the world and encouraged him to examine his own beliefs more carefully. His years of study demanded discipline and perseverance. He devoted himself to learning the legal profession and worked hard to complete the education required to become a lawyer. When he finally qualified and returned to India, he hoped that his training would allow him to establish a successful career. Reality proved more complicated than he expected. Despite his qualifications, Gandhi struggled to build the professional success he had imagined. Opportunities were limited, and he often found it difficult to gain confidence in the courtroom. The path he had carefully prepared for did not unfold as smoothly as he had hoped. At this stage, few people would have predicted that he was destined for greatness. He appeared to be an ordinary young lawyer searching for direction. Then an unexpected opportunity appeared. A legal assignment required him to travel to South Africa, where he would assist with a business matter involving Indian merchants. What seemed like a temporary professional engagement would become one of the most transformative experiences of his entire life. When Gandhi arrived in South Africa, he encountered a society deeply divided by racial discrimination. Laws and social customs treated people differently depending on their race and background. Certain groups enjoyed privileges that others were denied. Daily life was shaped by systems that limited opportunities and reinforced inequality. Gandhi observed these conditions as an outsider. Soon, however, he experienced them personally. One incident became especially important. While traveling by train, Gandhi purchased a valid first-class ticket. Legally, he had every right to occupy his seat. Yet because of racial prejudice, railway officials ordered him to move. When he refused to surrender his seat, he was forcibly removed from the train. The event may appear simple on the surface, but its impact was profound. Standing alone at a railway station after being humiliated despite following the rules, Gandhi faced a question that would shape the rest of his life. How should a person respond to injustice? Many people in similar circumstances might have reacted with anger alone. Others might have accepted the situation and moved on. Gandhi chose a different path. Rather than allowing the experience to fill him with hatred, he began thinking deeply about the larger system that had made such treatment possible. He realized that the problem extended far beyond one train ride or one individual act of discrimination. It was part of a broader structure affecting countless people every day. This realization changed him. The young lawyer, who had traveled to South Africa seeking professional experience, gradually became interested in social and political questions. He met individuals facing discrimination in employment, housing, travel, and legal matters. Listening to their experiences strengthened his determination to understand how unfair systems could be challenged. Over time, Gandhi became increasingly involved in public affairs. He organized meetings. He encouraged communities to work together. He helped people understand their rights. He sought ways to address injustice without abandoning moral principles. These efforts marked the beginning of a transformation. Gandhi was no longer focused solely on building a legal career. He was developing into a leader. One of the most important ideas to emerge during this period was his belief that resistance and violence were not the same thing. He believed injustice should never be accepted passively. People had a responsibility to challenge unfair treatment. However, he also believed that responding with hatred or violence often created new problems rather than solving existing ones. This conviction became the foundation of a philosophy that would later influence millions. Gandhi began exploring ways to resist oppression through discipline, courage, and nonviolent action. He believed that individuals could confront injustice while still respecting the humanity of those they opposed. These ideas were revolutionary. Many people assumed that power could only be challenged through force. Gandhi argued that moral courage could be just as powerful. The years he spent in South Africa became a period of learning, experimentation, and personal growth. The experiences he encountered there transformed his understanding of leadership, justice, and social change. The young lawyer who arrived searching for professional opportunities would leave as something very different. He had discovered a purpose greater than personal success. He had found principles worth dedicating his life to, and he had begun developing the philosophy that would eventually challenge one of the most powerful empires in the world and inspire movements for justice across continents. The power of nonviolent resistance. After spending more than 20 years in South Africa, Mahatma Gandhi returned to India as a very different man from the young lawyer who had first left his homeland. The experiences he had gained abroad had transformed his understanding of injustice, leadership, and social change. He had witnessed discrimination firsthand, organized communities, and developed ideas that would soon influence millions of people. When Gandhi arrived back in India, he found a nation filled with both opportunity and frustration. India possessed a rich history, diverse cultures, and a population numbering in the hundreds of millions. Yet despite its size and significance, the country remained under British rule. Many Indians felt that important decisions affecting their lives were being made without their participation. Growing numbers of citizens hoped for greater self-government and increased control over their future. The challenge facing them was enormous. The British Empire was one of the most powerful political forces in the world. Its influence stretched across continents. It possessed vast economic resources, a strong military, and well-established institutions. To many observers, challenging such power appeared nearly impossible. Throughout history, conflicts between rulers and those seeking change had often involved violence. Many people assumed that force was the only language powerful governments understood. Gandhi disagreed. His years of reflection and experience had led him to a different conclusion. He believed that ordinary citizens possessed a form of strength that was often overlooked. This strength did not depend upon weapons, armies, or physical power. It depended upon courage, discipline, unity, and moral conviction. Gandhi argued that governments ultimately rely upon the cooperation of the people they govern. If large numbers of citizens peacefully refused to participate in systems they considered unjust, meaningful change could become possible. This idea became the foundation of what Gandhi called nonviolent resistance. The concept was simple in theory but difficult in practice. People would challenge injustice without using violence. They would refuse cooperation with unfair laws. They would protest peacefully. They would accept personal sacrifice if necessary. Most importantly, They would resist the temptation to respond to oppression with hatred. Gandhi believed that this approach required tremendous courage. It is often easier to react emotionally than to remain disciplined under pressure. Nonviolent resistance demanded patience, self-control, and a willingness to endure hardship without abandoning one's principles. Many people initially doubted whether such methods could succeed. How could peaceful citizens challenge one of the most powerful empires in history? Gandhi believed the answer lay in collective action. If enough individuals acted together, they could influence events in ways that seemed impossible when viewed individually. As he traveled throughout India, Gandhi met people from many different backgrounds. He spoke with farmers struggling to support their families. He listened to workers facing difficult conditions. He met students, business owners, religious leaders, and community organizers. Although their circumstances varied, many shared similar concerns about fairness, opportunity, and self-determination. Gandhi encouraged them to participate in peaceful campaigns designed to challenge policies they considered unjust. His message resonated widely. People were drawn not only to his ideas but also to his personal example. He lived simply, emphasized self-discipline, and demonstrated a willingness to make sacrifices for his beliefs. This consistency strengthened his credibility and inspired confidence among supporters. One of the most famous examples of nonviolent resistance occurred in 1930 during the Salt March. At first glance, salt might seem like an unusual focus for a political movement, yet Gandhi understood its significance. British laws restricted the production and sale of salt, a basic necessity used by virtually every household. By controlling salt, authorities affected ordinary people throughout the country. Gandhi decided to challenge these laws through peaceful action. Accompanied by supporters, he began a long march covering hundreds of kilometers. Along the way, more people joined the movement. Newspapers reported on the journey, and public interest grew steadily. When Gandhi finally reached the coast and symbolically produced salt in defiance of British regulations, the act attracted enormous attention. The event demonstrated that even simple actions could carry powerful political meaning. The Salt March became one of the most famous protests in modern history. It showed how organized, peaceful resistance could capture public attention, inspire participation, and encourage debate about important issues. The movement also demonstrated that nonviolence was not passive. Participants were actively challenging policies they considered unfair. They were taking risks. Many faced arrest. Others experienced criticism or economic hardship, yet they remained committed to peaceful methods. As these campaigns continued, Gandhi's influence expanded. His ideas reached audiences far beyond India. Observers around the world watched with fascination as a movement based on nonviolence challenged one of history's most powerful empires. People began asking whether similar methods could be applied elsewhere. Could peaceful resistance help address injustice in other societies? Could moral courage become a force capable of transforming political systems? For Gandhi, the answer was yes. He believed that genuine change required more than replacing one group of leaders with another. It required transforming attitudes, relationships, and ways of thinking. Violence, he argued, often created new cycles of resentment and conflict. Nonviolence offered a different path. It sought justice without sacrificing humanity. It challenged oppression while preserving dignity. It aimed to change not only laws but also hearts and minds. The success of Gandhi's approach helped reshape conversations about political action throughout the 20th century. Future generations of activists, reformers, and civil rights leaders would study his methods and adapt them to their own struggles. What began as a philosophy developed through personal experience became a global influence. Gandhi demonstrated that determined citizens could shape history without relying on weapons. He showed that courage could take forms other than physical force, and he proved that millions of ordinary people, united by shared principles and disciplined action, could challenge even the most powerful institutions. The power of nonviolent resistance would become one of his greatest contributions to the world, and its impact continues to be felt long after his lifetime, leading a nation through struggle. As the years passed, Mahatma Gandhi became one of the most influential figures in India's growing movement for independence. What had begun as a personal search for justice had evolved into a national mission that inspired millions of people across cities, villages, farms, and universities. Increasing numbers of Indians looked to Gandhi for guidance during a period of profound political and social change. Yet Gandhi's leadership extended far beyond politics. He believed that true freedom involved more than replacing one government with another. In his view, independence required individuals to take responsibility for themselves, their communities, and the future of their nation. He encouraged people to think deeply about how they lived, worked, and treated one another. For Gandhi, political freedom and personal responsibility were closely connected. He often spoke about self-reliance, discipline, and ethical behavior. He encouraged people to support local industries, strengthen their communities, and reduce dependence on systems that limited their ability to shape their own future. He believed that meaningful change began not only in government offices, but also in everyday choices made by ordinary citizens. These ideas resonated with many people. They saw in Gandhi a leader who practiced what he preached. He lived simply, wore modest clothing, and demonstrated a willingness to sacrifice personal comfort for principles he believed were important. His lifestyle reinforced the message he shared with others. The path toward independence, however, was anything but smooth. The movement faced constant challenges. Political negotiations often produced disagreements. Protests sometimes led to confrontations. Different groups held different opinions about the best way forward. Progress frequently appeared slow and uncertain. Throughout these difficulties, Gandhi remained committed to nonviolent action. His dedication to peaceful resistance was repeatedly tested. Authorities often viewed his activities as a challenge to established power. As a result, he was arrested on multiple occasions and spent significant periods in prison. For many people, imprisonment would have been discouraging. For Gandhi, it became another opportunity to demonstrate commitment to his principles. Each arrest attracted public attention and highlighted the issues he sought to address. Rather than weakening the movement, these experiences often strengthened support for the causes he represented. Even while confined, Gandhi continued reflecting, writing, and communicating ideas that inspired others to remain focused on long-term goals. One of his greatest strengths was his ability to maintain hope during difficult periods. Political movements often experience moments of frustration. Supporters can become discouraged when progress seems slow. Opponents can appear overwhelmingly powerful. Unexpected setbacks can create doubts about the future. Gandhi understood these challenges. He repeatedly reminded people that meaningful change rarely occurs quickly. Patience, he argued, was not a sign of weakness. It was a form of strength. He encouraged supporters to remain disciplined even when immediate results were not visible. He believed that lasting achievements often require years of effort and persistence. This message helped sustain the independence movement during periods when success seemed distant. As global events reshaped the 20th century, the situation in India continued evolving. Economic pressures, political developments, and changing international circumstances created new opportunities for reform. Conversations about India's future became increasingly important both within the country and abroad. During these years, Gandhi's influence remained central. People from different backgrounds continued drawing inspiration from his example. Farmers admired his connection to ordinary citizens. Students respected his vision for social change. Community leaders valued his commitment to nonviolence. Even many individuals who disagreed with certain aspects of his philosophy acknowledged his sincerity and moral courage. His reputation extended beyond India as well. Observers around the world followed developments closely. Journalists reported on his activities. Political leaders studied his methods. Activists interested in justice and human rights began paying attention to the principles he promoted. What made Gandhi particularly remarkable was his ability to combine determination with humility. He possessed strong convictions, yet he remained willing to engage in dialogue. He advocated firmly for his beliefs while encouraging peaceful solutions. This balance helped him maintain credibility among diverse groups of people. The closer India moved toward independence, The more complex the situation became, political negotiations intensified. Questions about the future required difficult decisions. Competing interests and perspectives created new challenges. Throughout these developments, Gandhi continued emphasizing unity, patience, and moral responsibility. He understood that achieving independence would be a historic accomplishment, but he also recognized that building a successful nation would require ongoing effort long after political goals had been achieved. For Gandhi, leadership was never simply about winning a struggle. It was about preparing people for the responsibilities that followed. His influence helped shape not only the independence movement itself, but also broader conversations about citizenship, ethics, and social responsibility. By the time the possibility of independence moved closer to reality, Gandhi had become much more than a political leader. He had become a symbol of perseverance. He represented the belief that ordinary people could influence history through courage and determination. He demonstrated that commitment to principles could survive years of hardship, and he reminded millions that meaningful progress often requires patience, discipline, and faith in a better future. The struggle for India's independence was long and complicated. But throughout its most challenging moments, Gandhi remained one of its most important guiding voices. His leadership helped sustain hope when obstacles seemed overwhelming, and kept attention focused on the larger vision of a free and self-governing nation. That influence would leave a lasting mark not only on India but also on the world, a legacy that reached the world. In 1947, after decades of struggle, sacrifice, and determination, India finally achieved independence. For millions of people across the country, the moment represented the realization of a dream that had inspired generations. Families who had spent years participating in protests, supporting reform movements, and hoping for self-government witnessed a historic transformation. The achievement did not belong to one individual alone. Countless people had contributed to the movement in different ways. Yet there was little doubt that Mahatma Gandhi's ideas, leadership, and example had played a central role in shaping the path that led to independence. For Gandhi, however, independence was never simply about political victory. He believed that true freedom involved responsibility as well as opportunity. A nation gaining control of its future would also need wisdom, unity, and a commitment to justice. Political change could create possibilities, but building a better society required continued effort from ordinary citizens. The years surrounding independence were complex and challenging. India faced important decisions about its future. Communities worked to adapt to changing circumstances, and many people hoped that a new chapter of national development could begin. Throughout this period, Gandhi continued encouraging principles that had guided him for much of his life. He emphasized peace, understanding, and respect for human dignity. He believed that lasting progress depended not only on laws and institutions but also on the values people practiced in their daily lives. What makes Gandhi's story especially remarkable is that his influence did not stop at India's borders. Some of his greatest impact would occur far beyond the country he helped transform. Around the world, people began studying his methods and philosophy. Political leaders, social reformers, religious thinkers, and ordinary citizens became interested in the principles he had developed through years of experience. Many were fascinated by a simple but powerful question: how had a movement based on nonviolence challenged one of the most powerful empires in history? The answer inspired people facing their own struggles. Individuals working for civil rights, social justice, and political reform discovered valuable lessons in Gandhi's example. They saw that courage did not always require physical force. They learned that disciplined, organized, and peaceful action could influence public opinion and create meaningful change. His ideas traveled across continents. Activists read his writings, students studied his speeches, community leaders discussed his methods. The philosophy that had developed through his experiences in South Africa and India began influencing movements in many different countries. Some people adopted his emphasis on peaceful protest. Others admired his commitment to moral principles. Many were inspired by his belief that individuals could challenge injustice without abandoning compassion or humanity. This global influence helped transform Gandhi into one of the most recognizable figures of the 20th century. Yet his impact was not based on wealth, military power, or political office. It was based on ideas. Ideas have a unique ability to travel beyond borders and survive long after the individuals who first expressed them. Gandhi understood this. He believed that values such as truth, nonviolence, self-discipline, and respect for others possessed enduring significance. These principles could guide people facing many different challenges in many different parts of the world. In January 1948, only months after India achieved independence, Gandhi's life came to a tragic end when he was assassinated. The news shocked millions. People throughout India mourned the loss of a leader who had devoted much of his life to serving causes larger than himself. Around the world, others reflected on the remarkable journey of a man who had influenced history without commanding armies or seeking personal power. Although his life ended, his legacy continued growing. Books, articles, documentaries, and educational programs introduced new generations to his story. Scholars analyzed his ideas. Historians examined his role in global events. Students learned about his philosophy of nonviolent resistance. His example remained relevant because the questions he explored remain important. How should people respond to injustice? Can meaningful change occur without violence? What responsibilities accompany freedom? How can individuals remain faithful to their principles during difficult times? These questions continue inspiring discussion today. More than 70 years after his death, Gandhi remains one of history's most influential figures. The quiet boy from Porbandar became a lawyer, reformer, activist, and global symbol of moral courage. His journey demonstrated that leadership does not require extraordinary wealth or military strength. Sometimes it begins with a willingness to think differently. Sometimes it grows through perseverance during difficult circumstances. Sometimes it emerges from a commitment to values that remain steady despite challenges. The story of Mahatma Gandhi reminds us that genuine strength often comes from character rather than power. It teaches that determination can overcome enormous obstacles, and that individuals guided by conviction can influence the course of history. That is why his name continues to be remembered. That is why his ideas continue to be studied. And that is why people around the world still find inspiration in the life of the man who challenged an empire without weapons. His legacy lives on not only in history books, but also in the countless individuals who continue believing that courage, truth, and nonviolence can help create a better world. And so, my friends, the story of Mahatma Gandhi comes to an end. He never commanded an army, yet he helped transform a nation. He carried no weapons, yet he challenged one of the most powerful empires in history. His life reminds us that courage can take many forms, and that determination guided by principles can achieve extraordinary things. Thank you for listening, my friends. Until our next story, keep learning, keep growing, and remember that some of history's greatest victories were achieved not through force, but through conviction, patience, and hope.